कितने लोग प्रैक्टिस में हैं या प्रैक्टिस में जाने की सोचते हैं? एम्प्लॉयमेंट में कितने लोग हैं? ओके, सो एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द पीपल, यू आर इन प्रैक्टिस ऑलरेडी. आप में से आई एम श्योर सम ऑफ यू मस्ट हैव डन सम कोर्स ऑलरेडी. सीए करने से पहले आपने सीए या सीएस कुछ किया होगा. कोई है जो उसमें से सीए वगैरह कर चुका है या सीएस कर चुका है? एनीवन? ओके, ओनली सीएमएस. वेरी गुड, very good. Okay, so let's continue with our discussion, and we were talking about IndAS 104, which is on non-current assets held for sale and discontinued operations. And we have understood the logic as to एक बार company ने decide किया that this business is going to be discontinued, and that means then onwards this business will be shown in the balance sheet as a separate line item under the heading current assets and not non-current assets. And I am sure you can also understand the fact that decision has been taken that this business is going to be discontinued. That means company will stop charging depreciation on all these assets because अभी वो discontinue करना है तो उसके ऊपर depreciation charge करने में कोई meaning नहीं है, and that is what we must remember. Then you have IndAS 106, which is on exploration for and evaluation of mineral resources. So you can understand that this is a standard which is applicable more for the companies which are engaged in the mining and exploration, right? So that is what how the accounting has to be done for the mining and the mining resources. That is what is covered under IndAS 106 on exploration for and evaluation of mineral resources. Then you have IndAS 107, which is on financial instruments disclosure. Any idea what is the size of equity market globally? Globally, how big is the equity market? Any idea how big is the debt market globally? So commercial paper, debentures, government bonds, so all these instruments, debt instruments, what is the size? Globally, the size of equity market is of $120 trillion. And you can imagine how big is this equity market globally, because we in India are targeting to become a $5 trillion economy by the year 25. So we are targeting, as a country, we are targeting to become a $5 trillion economy, whereas globally the size of the equity market is $120 trillion, which means what? 24 times? 24 times of what we are trying to aim, right? Okay. What is the size of debt market globally? The size of the debt market globally is $300 trillion. That means the debt market is 2.5 times bigger in size than the equity market. So what I am trying to tell you is the number of instruments, financial instruments, which are there in use globally, not only in India but globally. So how those instruments should be presented and disclosed, how should be disclosed, that is what is your IndAS 107 is about, right? So different financial instruments, how should they be disclosed in the balance sheet, so that the reader of the balance sheet or the P&L or the cash flow gets an idea as to what kind of company it is. Then you have IndAS 108, which is about the operating segment, and we all understand एक कंपनी है उसके चार अलग अलग सेगमेंट हैं. तो एक कंपनी अगर चार अलग अलग सेगमेंट में ऑपरेट कर रही है और अगर ये कंपनी अपना बैलेंस शीट और प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस स्टेटमेंट बनाए और वो सारा के सारा चारों का इकट्ठा बनाए, एज अ इन्वेस्टर और एज समवन इंटरेस्टेड इन दैट कंपनी, will you be able to figure out the real position of this company? And the answer is no. On the overall basis, maybe yes, but if the information of the P&L and the balance sheet is not given to you in segment wise, then it would be difficult for anyone to figure out as to how good or bad this company is. And that is why you have IndAS 108, which is on the operating segment. So and the IndAS 108 about the operating segments talks about as to how a company should break up different segments and disclose informations about those segments so that the readers of the financial statements are able to derive at or arrive at better decisions. So these are then of course you got IndAS 114, which is on regulatory deferral payments. Then you have balance sheet related IndASes, and which is again 18 of them. So these are these 15 the standards are relating to presentation and disclosure, and then you have 18 standards which relates to the balance sheet and P&L specifically. Now which are these? Number one, IndAS 2, which is on inventories. So what this standard talks about, this standard talks about is how will you do the accounting of inventories of a business. So what all costs will you include in the inventory? What will you do if the current market price of the inventory that you are carrying has gone down? So at what price do you show it in the balance sheet? Do you show it at the purchase price, or do you show it at the net realizable value? And of course the IndAS 2 on the inventory says that in case if the value of the inventory has gone down, then you have to show this inventory at the net realizable value. And what is net realizable value? Net realizable value will mean अगर आपको ये इन्वेंट्री डिस्पोज ऑफ करनी पड़े तो उससे आपको कितना पैसा मिलेगा, माइनस the expenses that you will incur in disposing of this inventory. So what remains in your hand is the net realizable value. That means if the inventory prices have gone down, you need to write off the inventory to the extent the value has gone down. The standard also talks about, can you write back what you have written off in the previous years? And the answer is yes. So in case if the last year the price went down, so you wrote down the value of inventory. If in the current year the prices have increased, then you can of course write back whatever you have written off. Only thing, please remember, you can write off only what you have written off. You cannot exceed that amount, and that is what IndAS 2 about the inventories talks about. IndAS 12 on the income tax. Now what IndAS 12 on the income tax talks about, I am sure all of you would remember that previously how will you do the accounting, or how will you show the your profit and loss? So you will show your profit and loss based on what is the tax amount for that year, and that is what you will deduct the income tax from the PBT, profit before tax, and directly arrive at the figure of net profit after tax or profit after tax. Now it is possible that because of some carried forward losses of previous years, your tax liability of the current year has gone down. And please understand this, if time permits I will take an example. So because of the carried forward losses of past years, or because you have acquired another company which has got carried forward losses, you have merged a loss making company into your company, and this loss making company has got carried forward losses. And हम सबको मालूम है कि टैक्स लायबिलिटी कैसे कंप्यूट करते हैं, प्रॉफिट माइनस प्रॉफिट प्लस डेप्रिसिएशन एज पर द कंपनीज एक्ट, माइनस डेप्रिसिएशन एज पर द इनकम टैक्स एक्ट, माइनस carried forward losses, and whatever remains we compute tax amount on that is supposed to be our taxable profit. So समझ के लीजिए, अगर carried forward losses की वजह से या किसी कंपनी के आपकी कंपनी में मर्जर होने की वजह से, बिकॉज उस कंपनी के carried forward losses थे, उन फिगर की वजह से आपकी करंट ईयर की जो टैक्स लायबिलिटी है वो कम हो गई, उसकी वजह से आपका जो करंट ईयर का प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स है वो बढ़ गया. तो आप मुझे बताइए, ये जो बढ़ा हुआ प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स है, इज इट बिकॉज ऑफ द परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ द करंट ईयर, और इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द लॉसेस ऑफ द पास्ट ईयर? एंड द आंसर इज losses of the past year. And therefore you have IndAS 12 which is on income tax. And what IndAS 12 does, IndAS 12 breaks your tax component into two parts, deferred tax and the current tax, right? So Previously you will take only the current tax, and since you will take only the current tax, you will show inflated profit after tax. You are showing inflated profit after tax. By default, you are giving a wrong information to the readers of your financial statements. Now what you do? Now you don't show only the current tax, you show the deferred tax, which is the amount of tax that you are saving because of the carried forward losses. So you take the deferred tax and then you also take the current tax. Current tax is the tax which is on account of the current year's operations. Current tax is the amount of tax that you will literally pay to the income tax authorities, and that is what IndAS 12 on the income tax is about. And again, why is that so? So that your profit and loss statement gives the correct picture. Are you with me? समझ रहे सब लोग मैं क्या कह रहा हूँ? तो अगर आप ये नहीं करेंगे, आप सीधा करंट टैक्स को ही माइनस करेंगे, तो यू विल शो अ रॉन्ग पिक्चर टू द रीडर्स ऑफ योर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स. लेकिन आप डेफर्ड टैक्स को दिखाएंगे तो क्या होगा, उससे जो आपका प्रॉफिट आफ्टर टैक्स है, टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ द डेफर्ड टैक्स अमाउंट विल डिप्रेस. दैट मीन्स इट विल शो correct profit after tax for that year, and that's your IndAS 12 about the income tax. Then you have IndAS 16, which is on property, plant and equipment. Now IndAS 16 about the property, plant and equipment has introduced a new concept, and that is known as componentization of depreciation. Now you know what is componentization of depreciation? Any idea, anyone? Any idea? So the componentization of assets would mean you have an aircraft. Now aircraft has got 2-3 major components, and what those 2-3 major components are: number 1 is the main body, number 2 the electrical part, number 2 the computer part, and number 3 the engines. Now all these 4 components of aeroplane have got different life. Now before IndAS 16, what you will do? You will charge depreciation on the plane as a whole. Taking the life of the plane, you will charge depreciation on the plane as a whole. Now is that the correct way of charging depreciation? Answer is no. And why answer is no? Because life of the body of the plane is different, life of the engines of the plane is different, and the electricals which are fitted in the plane is different. So if the life of all these components, and these components are sizable as far as the amount is concerned, and charging the depreciation for the same tenure is not correct. So what you do when you have to charge depreciation in I'm just giving an example of aeroplane, but then this can be applicable to any other plant and machinery. You will have to look at the plant and machinery and figure it out whether this plant and machinery can be broken into components, and then you charge the depreciation accordingly. So depending on what the component is, depending on what is the life of that component is, then you charge the depreciation. That is the new concept that you have under PPE, property, plant and equipment, IndAS 16, and that is what you can do. So that means today you do not have to charge the depreciation on the entire assets. If your asset can be broken into different components, you charge depreciation on different components, right? So that is what you will do. And then it will also talk about property IndAS 16 as to, there are maintenance which are of 2 types. One is routine maintenance and second is capex maintenance. What is the difference between the two? Anyone? Routine maintenance and capex maintenance, दोनों में क्या फर्क है?
Routine maintenance is recurring in nature.
मतलब
वो कंटिन्यूअसली होते रहता है, और जो कैपेक्स मेंटेनेंस होता है वो कभी ब्रेक डाउन होने के बाद या कोई अगर इम्प्रूवमेंट करना है तो उसके लिए जो मेंटेनेंस रिक्वायर्ड होता है वो कैपेक्स मेंटेनेंस.
वेरी गुड. अब देखो, योर्स इज, लेट्स से योर कंपनी इज ए स्टील मेकिंग कंपनी, और स्टील मेकिंग कंपनी का क्या मतलब है? स्टील मेकिंग कंपनी का मतलब है कि यू हैव यूज फर्नेसेस जिसमें कि आप आयरन ओर को मेल्ट करते हो, प्योरीफाई करते हो, और वहाँ से वो लिक्विड फॉर्म में स्टील निकल के बाहर आता है, फिर आपको उसके इनगट्स वगैरह बनाते हो. तो ये जो फर्नेस है, ये फर्नेस की कॉस्ट रन्स इनटू मिलियंस, और इसकी जो मेंटेनेंस है दैट ऑल्सो रन्स इनटू ह्यूज अमाउंट्स. तो उसकी मेंटेनेंस पे जो आप खर्चा कर रहे हो, वेदर यू विल कैटेगराइज दैट मेंटेनेंस कॉस्ट एज कैपेक्स और ओपेक्स। सो जो फर्नेस है उसकी जो मेंटेनेंस है उसके ऊपर जो आप खर्चा कर रहे हो, उस खर्चे को आप कहाँ पर कैटेगराइज करोगे? ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंस करके कैटेगराइज करोगे या फिर आप उसको कैपेक्स करके कैटेगराइज करोगे? ऑल ऑफ यू। प्लीज जॉइन योर हैंड्स एंड गिव हिम अ वेरी गुड इंडीड। सो देखिए, वेन एवर यू आर इनकरिंग एनी एक्सपेंस ऑन मेंटेनेंस, you will need to look at कि ये जो आप खर्चा कर रहे हो on the on a particular capital equipment, because of this capital equipment, because of this expenditure that you are incurring in respect of that capital equipment, what is going to happen? Is this expense only going to help you in ensuring that this equipment runs its usual life? If that is the case, then this expense is to be recorded or is to be accounted for in your books as a routine maintenance. But if you are incurring an expenditure on a capital equipment, because of this expenditure that you are incurring on this capital equipment, because of this expense, the life of the equipment is going to increase, or the yield of the equipment is going to increase, or efficiency of the equipment is going to increase. If any of these three things are going to happen, then this expense that you are incurring on the capital equipment, it is going to be recorded in your books as capital expenditure. That means what? That means this expense that you are incurring on the plant and equipment, so you will add this cost to the carrying cost of this plant and equipment, assess as to what is the new life of this equipment, and start charging depreciation as per the new life that occurs after you have incurred the capital expenditure on the maintenance. So these are covered, friends, as part of your IndAS 16 property plant and equipment. It also talks in terms of कि अगर आप एक property plant and equipment ले रहे हैं तो कौन कौन से खर्चे आप उसको उसमें ऐड करेंगे. So the property plant and equipment that you are getting into your factory, plant and machinery, so the cost of the transportation of course will be part of your cost of the plant and machinery. Commissioning, erecting, and all that expenses that you will incur will also be part of that property plant and equipment, and you will charge depreciation accordingly. अगर ये जो equipment वगैरह आपने परचेज किया, इसमें आपने GST भी भरा है और वो GST का आप क्रेडिट ले रहे हो, so will this GST amount of which you are taking the credit, will this be part of the cost of the plant and machinery? And the answer of course is no, and it cannot be added, because since you are taking the credit, it is not costing you, and if it is not costing you, it cannot be part of your plant and machinery cost. So this is what is your IndAS 16 about property, plant and equipment. IndAS 19 is about employee benefits. Now a very important area, more so for big companies. Of course, it is applicable to all companies. So what the what standard 19 is on employee benefits is about. अब देखिए कंपनीज हैं तो कंपनीज है ना एम्प्लॉयज़ के ऊपर बहुत सारे खर्चे करती हैं. सो सम ऑफ द एक्सपेंसेस आर फॉर शॉर्ट टर्म बेनिफिट ऑफ द एम्प्लॉयज़ and some of the benefits are for the long term benefits of the employees. So superannuation is a long term benefit, right? And likewise gratuity is a long term benefit. So IndAS 19 on employee benefit talks about as to how will you make provision for long term benefits of long term employee benefits which you are obligated to provide to them. And so there are different kinds of plans that company can adopt to ensure the employee benefits. That is what is covered as part of IndAS 19 on employee benefits. IndAS 20 is for accounting for government grants and disclosures of government grant. So this is in case if the company is getting any government grant for different purposes. So I am sure all of you must be aware of something called CCOM benefits. Are you aware of CCOM benefits? So you know, at one time the government of Maharashtra will provide benefits, incentives to the industry. The whole Maharashtra was categorized into different zones, and depending on the zone in which your company will be registered or your plant will be situated, your company will be entitled for certain incentives from the side of the government benefits. Those benefits could be in the form of capital grant, or those can be in the form of sales tax benefit, and those sales tax benefit could be availed by you as per your choice, either as an exemption or as a deferral. So exemption will mean that if you opt for exemption, then when you are selling your goods, you do not have to levy sales tax at that point in time on the sales that you are making. If you opt in for deferral, that would mean you levy the sales tax, collect it also from the customer. Since you are opting for deferral, you don't pay it to the government for certain number of years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, depending on the scheme. You keep that benefit, that sales tax collected by you with you, use it for your purpose. After the given period of 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you give it back to the government. So how to do the accounting of all such benefits and the assistance and the grants, that is what is covered under IndAS 20, which is on accounting for government grants. IndAS 21 is about the effects of changes in foreign exchange rates. तो हम सभी को मालूम है क्या होता है, जब हम गुड्स सेल कर रहे हैं तो उस समय डॉलर की प्राइस एक होती है, राइट. जब हमको पैसा कस्टमर से आता है उस समय पर डॉलर की प्राइस दूसरी होती है. ओके, एंड लाइकवाइज व्हेन वी इंपोर्ट सर्टेन गुड्स, दी जो हमने इंपोर्ट किया है, उस जब हमारे ऊपर कस्टमर ने इनवॉइस रेज किया उस समय डॉलर की प्राइस एक होती है, और जब हम उसको पेमेंट करते हैं उस समय डॉलर की प्राइस दूसरी होती है. सो ऑल दीज चेंजेस in all these kind of transaction will result to you either as a benefit or they will result to you as a cost. तो अगर आप exporter हैं, if you are an exporter, right, and if rupee is depreciating as it is happening today, of course rupee has been depreciating ever since the independence, but today rupee seems to be depreciating quite rapidly. सो हमने देखा कि अभी वो 83, 84 के आसपास आ चुका है. सो इफ़ यू आर एन एक्सपोर्टर एंड रुपी इज डेप्रिशिएटिंग, इज इट गुड फॉर यू और बैड फॉर यू? इफ यू आर एन एक्सपोर्टर एंड रुपी इज डेप्रिशिएटिंग, इज गुड फॉर यू. एंड वाई इज गुड फॉर यू? जब आपने एक्सपोर्ट किया कंसाइनमेंट, उस समय रुपया $80 का था. जब आपको पेमेंट आया कस्टमर से उस समय डॉलर 84 रुपीज़ का हो गया. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब आपकी जो इन्वॉइसिंग थी वो $80 के हिसाब से थी. अगर $1 मिलियन का कंसाइनमेंट था तो आपकी जो रुपी इन्वॉइसिंग थी वो 80 मिलियन रुपीज़ की हो गई. लेकिन जब आपको पेमेंट मिलेगा वो आपको पेमेंट $1 मिलियन का ही मिलेगा. लेकिन चूंकि डॉलर रुपी एक्सचेंज रेट हैज़ अंडरगॉन अ चेंज, रुपी हैज़ डेप्रिशिएटेड, इट हैज़ बिकम 84. सो व्हाट विल हैपन? यू विल गेट हाउ मच रुपीज़? You will get 84 million rupees. Are you with me? So that means your invoice is for $80 million and you are getting 84 million. Your invoice is for 80 million rupees and you are getting payment which is 84 million rupees. So that means you are getting a benefit of 4 million rupees. So this is the benefit on account of the fluctuation in the exchange rate. So how to do accounting of these transactions? Is it your operating profit? Everybody, is this benefit that you are getting on account of change in the exchange rate, is it your operating profit? Obviously the answer is no. Why? Because this profit you are earning not because of your operations. This profit you are earning because of fluctuation in the exchange rate, and therefore it is not your operating income. So IndAS 21 on the effects of changes in foreign exchange talks about as to how to do the recording of these transactions. And remember, and why is that so? Please pay attention. अगर आप 84 मिलियन को आपकी रेवेन्यू करके दिखाओगे और ये जो 4 मिलियन का आपको प्रॉफिट हुआ है वो आप उस प्रॉफिट को ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट करके दिखाओगे, इज इट द राइट अकाउंटिंग और रॉन्ग अकाउंटिंग? इट्स रॉन्ग अकाउंटिंग, बिकॉज जो भी जिस किसी को भी आपकी कंपनी में इंटरेस्ट है उसको आपकी कंपनी के ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट में इंटरेस्ट है. समझ रहे हैं क्यों? क्योंकि ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट इज समथिंग विच इज रिकरिंग, which is going to happen in future also. Non-recurring profit is not so much important for anyone who is interested in your company. Why? Because वो non-recurring है, उसकी कल को कोई गारंटी नहीं है. आज वो प्रॉफिट है, कल को वो लॉस भी हो सकता है. लेकिन जो ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है वो स्टेडी है. And that is the reason why you have IndAS 21 about changes in the exchange rates. Just to give you more idea about it. You know, I'm sure all of you must be reading. Recently, Gautam Adani has acquired Ambuja Cement, right? And ACC also. आपको क्या लगता है कि जब गौतम अडानी अंबुजा सीमेंट को एसी सीमेंट को एक्वायर करते हैं तो उनका इंटरेस्ट किस चीज़ में है? ऑल ऑफ यू, जब उस कंपनी को एक्वायर कर रहे हैं तो उनका इंटरेस्ट किस चीज़ को एक्वायर करने में है? To entry in that industry, yes, of course, very good, no doubt about that. What else? Market share. So entry, market share connected, yes, of course. What else? Of course, diversification. What else? Scaling of business. Okay, very good. What else? So remember, जब गौतम अडानी अंबुजा सीमेंट को एक्वायर करते हैं या एसीसी को एक्वायर करते हैं या लक्ष्मी निवास मित्तल एसआर स्टील को एक्वायर करते हैं, तो याद रखिए मिस्टर मित्तल का, मिस्टर गौतम अडानी का उस प्लांट के लैंड में कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, यस और नो? उस कंपनी की बिल्डिंग में भी कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, उस कंपनी की प्लांट एंड मशीनरी को लेने में भी कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, उस कंपनी की बाकी एसेट्स में भी उनको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, उस कंपनी के एम्प्लॉयज़ में भी उनको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। तो फिर उनको कहाँ पे इंटरेस्ट है? उनको इंटरेस्ट है उस कंपनी के कैश जनरेशन से। आर यू विद मी? समझ रहे हैं क्या कह रहा हूँ मैं? तो जब भी कोई किसी कंपनी को एक्वायर करता है तो उस जो कंपनी को एक्वायर कर रहा है उसको लैंड में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, बिल्डिंग में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, प्लांट एंड मशीनरी में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, उसको किस में इंटरेस्ट है? उसको उस कंपनी के एबिडा में इंटरेस्ट है। किस में इंटरेस्ट है? एबिडा में इंटरेस्ट है। और ये जो फॉरेन एक्सचेंज की वजह से जो आपको प्रॉफिट हुआ, विल दिस प्रॉफिट बी पार्ट ऑफ योर एबिडा? एंड द आंसर इज नो। एंड व्हाई द आंसर इज नो? बिकॉज दिस प्रॉफिट ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ फ्लक्चुएशन इन द एक्सचेंज रेट इज नॉट योर ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट। और उनको एबिडा में क्यों इंटरेस्ट है? बिकॉज एबिडा इज वॉट दे अस्यूम इज गोइंग टू हैपन ईयर आफ्टर ईयर, ईयर आफ्टर ईयर, ईयर आफ्टर ईयर। सो जब भी दुनिया में कोई कंपनी एक्वायर करता है, याद रखिए उनका इंटरेस्ट ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट में है, एबिडा में है। एंड दैट इज वाई आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू वुड रिमेंबर और यू वुड हैव रेड मेनी टाइम्स, जब भी कोई एक्विजिशन होता है, हाउ द वैल्यूएशंस आर डिसाइडेड। देयर आर मेनी वेज ऑफ डिसाइडिंग द वैल्यूएशन, बट वन ऑफ द वेज ऑफ डिसाइडिंग द वैल्यूएशन इज EBITDA multiples, yeah, future cash flows. So EBITDA multiples, right? So they decide the valuation in terms of EBITDA multiples, and that is the reason why you have to segregate जो आपकी रेवेन्यू, जो आपकी ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट है वो कहाँ से आएगा? वो आपने जो 80 रुपये के हिसाब से जो सेल किया है उसके हिसाब से आएगा। ऊपर का जो पेमेंट है वो कहाँ से आएगा? वो आपकी इनकम है, विच इज़ इनकम फ्रॉम अदर सोर्सेज। आर यू विद मी? एंड दैट इज़ योर IndAS 21 अबाउट income tax. About the effects of changes in foreign currency. Then you got IndAS 23, which is about borrowing cost. Can somebody give me some idea as to what this IndAS 23, which is on borrowing cost, is all about and why? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, so let me give you time of 2 minutes. So 2 मिनट का समय देता हूँ आप सबको, डिस्कस करिए आपस में और समझ के लीजिए एक दूसरे से कि IndAS 23 विच इज़ ऑन बोरिंग कॉस्ट क्या है और किसके बारे में हो सकता है। डजेंट रियली मैटर कि आपने IndAS 23 को पहले कभी पढ़ा है कि नहीं पढ़ा है, बिल्कुल फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता है। हम फाइनेंस के प्रोफेशनल्स हैं, हमको बोरोइंग क्या है मालूम है, यस और नो? कॉस्ट क्या है हमको मालूम है, यस और नो? हम किस चीज़ के बारे में डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं, अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स के बारे में, हमको ये मालूम है, यस और नो? ऑफ कोर्स मालूम है। तो लुक एट फ्रॉम दैट पर्सपेक्टिव कि बोरोइंग कॉस्ट का अकाउंटिंग के पर्सपेक्टिव से, डिस्क्लोजर के पर्सपेक्टिव से क्या इम्पैक्ट हो सकता है। थिंक फ्रॉम दैट पर्सपेक्टिव एंड आई एम श्योर ऑल ऑफ यू विल कम आउट विद द राइट आंसर्स। 2 मिनट का समय है, डिस्कस करिए और मुझे बताइए। Yeah, okay. So who will tell me? Someone from the last line. What is IndAS 23?
Sir, can I explain it with an example?
Of course, of course, of course, of course.
If any telecom company
Mm-hmm.
want to expand their business in certain area, so
Mm-hmm.
they decided to build a tower over there.
Right.
So they take a loan from bank
Mm-hmm.
and start erection process.
Right.
It may happen that erection process and actual working of the tower may not be started in same year,
Mm-hmm.
which they have started all the digging and erection.
Right.
So the cost incurred from that operation
Mm-hmm.
will be they have to decide it will be a capital expenditure or a revenue expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
So that is defined in that in this expenditure.
Okay, very good, very good. Anyone else from the last row? Okay, very good. Anyone from the second last row? Would you like to say? What is borrowing cost IndAS 23 is all about? Anyone from here? Okay, anyone from here? Someone from this row? Okay, yes ma'am.
सर इफ देयर इज एनी क्वालिफाइड असेट
हम्म,
जो रेडी होने में उसको 1 या 1.5 साल लगने वाला है,
राइट.
तो जो 1-1.5 साल में जो पोर्शन होगा,
हम्म,
तो वो जो इंटरेस्ट का जो पोर्शन होगा
हम्म,
वो कैपिटल कॉस्ट में इंक्लूड होगा.
Very
और जो
good.
उसके बाद जब वो पुट टू यूज या रेडी टू यूज होगा, उसके बाद वो P&L को डेबिट होगा.
Absolutely. Please join your hands. Give her a big round. Very good. Very good indeed. So देखिए, what is IndAS 23 on borrowing cost is all about, and this is exactly as what she has said. So if you are adding any capital equipment in your business, it becomes a qualifying asset. And why does it become qualifying asset? Because completion or acquisition of this asset is going to be taking a long time. So अब आप एक फैक्ट्री बिल्ड कर रहे हैं. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल यू आर कंस्ट्रक्टिंग अ फैक्ट्री, यू आर कंस्ट्रक्टिंग अ कंप्लीट प्रोजेक्ट. So what you have done for funding this project, you have put money from your pocket and you also have borrowed loans from the banks and financial institutions. तो ये लोन आपने किस लिए लिया है? ये लोन आपने इस प्रोजेक्ट को कंप्लीट करने के लिए लिया है. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि इस लोन के ऊपर जो इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट होगी for the duration when you are completing the project, this interest cost will be capitalized, or this interest cost will be added to the project cost. Meaning what? Meaning when you will charge depreciation, you will not charge depreciation on the basic amount of the building or the plant and machinery. You will charge depreciation on building amount, plant and machinery amount, plus proportionately distributed amount of the interest that you would have paid or that would have accrued during the project implementation period. Is that clear to everybody? And that is your IndAS 23 about the borrowing cost. Can somebody tell me why it is to be done this way? क्यों ऐसा करने की ज़रूरत है? P&L इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट है, इंटरेस्ट तो रेवेन्यू कॉस्ट है, रेवेन्यू कॉस्ट है तो उसको कैपिटलाइज क्यों करना? रेवेन्यू कॉस्ट है तो उसको P&L में लेके जाओ, वहाँ डेबिट कर दो. यहाँ पर डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? सो कैन समबडी टेल मी कि व्हाट इज़ द डिफरेंस? अगर आप उसको P&L में डेबिट करोगे तो क्या होगा डिस्क्लोजर पे, आपके फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पे, और अगर आप उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करोगे ऑन योर क्वालिफाइंग एसेट्स तो क्या होगा? यस मैम. ओके,
को डाला तो प्रॉफिट कम होगा.
वो तो ठीक है, पर ठीक है, प्रॉफिट कम होगा तो होगा, इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट है तो प्रॉफिट कम होगा तो होगा, क्या प्रॉब्लम है उसमें? Yeah, it will reduce substantially, that is also understood. So what? So what is wrong in that actually? Yeah, company will make the losses, that is also fine, because interest cost है, आपने P&L को डेबिट किया, तो अगर डिपेंडिंग ऑन द अमाउंट ऑफ द इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट योर P&L विल चेंज ड्रेस्टिकली. अगर प्रॉफिट बहुत ज़्यादा है तो प्रॉफिट कम हो जाएगा, प्रॉफिट कम है तो लॉस आ जाएगा, तो उससे फ़र्क क्या पड़ेगा?
Sir, only after completing the project or capital asset we have after that we incur or we earn Till that date, borrowing cost that can't be treated as expenses related to earning that income.
Okay.
And that's why we have to include those borrowing costs incurred for building that asset.
Okay. Okay. Very yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Very good. Anyone else?
So like for any asset to come into its position to generate the cash. For an example, like we said that if there is any expenses that is done to create an efficiency in the asset, this asset is still not in use. We are creating an efficiency indirectly.
Right.
So that is why the interest expense is taken into that, because in short that cost is going to increase the efficiency of the asset to come in its position to work. And once it is there, it is not going to increase any efficiency. Now it is going to generate its own cash.
Right.
Now that cost will be considered as an PA.
Okay. Very good. Very good. One more person. Anyone from this?
It will provide a future economic benefit in the upcoming year.
Yeah.
Till then capitalize the interest till the available to use, asset available to use.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So please, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Sir, to match the cost and the revenue concept.
Fantastic. Very good.
If we are incurring some cost to build some asset to generate the profit in future,
Right.
up to the point time that is not generating the revenues, we can't take the interest cost as a cost in P&L account.
Very good. So please give a big round of applause to every one of them who have answered this question. And so that is number one. Please remember, this is the fundamental for preparation of the financial statements. And there is something called as matching concept. And what is matching concept? Matching concept is the revenue and the expenses incurred to earn that revenue should be accounted for in the same period. This is the matching concept. Now tell me, this project that you are implementing, for which you have borrowed money, on which you are paying interest, if you take this interest to your P&L, tell me, have you accounted for any income from this project into your P&L? And the answer is no. So if you have not accounted for any revenue from this project, because this project has not earned any revenue as of now, so if you have not taken any revenue into the P&L from this project, will it be correct accounting on the part of every one of us to take the interest cost to P&L? And the answer is no, it will not be correct. It's going to be incorrect. That means what? That means we are going to disclose our P&L incorrectly. We are unnecessarily going to depress the profitability of that year. And that's number one. Number two, ये जो interest cost आपने pay करी है, for what have you incurred this interest cost? You have incurred this interest cost for the loan that you have taken. And loan you have taken for what? Loan you have taken for constructing the project. So if you have taken the loan for constructing the project, then the interest that you have incurred on this loan is supposed to be the cost for the project. And therefore, this cost needs to be loaded onto the project, which means this borrowing cost needs to be capitalized. And that is your IndAS 23, which is on borrowing cost. Are you all with me, everybody? Does it make sense to everyone? And this is the reason as to how the borrowing cost has to be capitalized. Then you have IndAS 36, which is on impairment. I am sure all of you must be totally aware as to what is impairment. Anyone? What is impairment?
Book value or market value में difference है.
Book value and market value में difference है. That means there is an impairment. Okay, very good. What is impairment?
Carrying amount versus the market value. So if your carrying amount of the asset is like 100 rupees and now in the market it is 80 rupees. So you are carrying the amount higher.
हाँ.
So in that case the 20 rupees will be considered as an impairment.
Right.
That much amount is not able to get recovered from you. So what amount you're showing in the balance sheet is not right as per to what you're going to incur from the market. So basically there are two things. First, you will just, if you sell that particular asset today, that would be the sell amount minus the cost. So that amount, or if you carry that particular asset for the future as well, so make sure what is the future earnings taken into present year, whatever the amount that is higher, that will take, and the difference will put it as an impairment.
Very good. So please join your hands and give both of them a big round. Very good. Very good. अब देखिए, we all know it that in a business we have two kinds of fixed assets. Which are those? Number one, tangible, and number two, intangible. So doesn't really matter whether an asset is tangible or intangible. Since we are using these assets, value of these assets is diminishing year after year. Reduction in the value of a tangible asset by way is referred as depreciation. Reduction in the value of an intangible asset is referred as amortization. Now देखिए, तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम हर साल हमारी टेंजिबल एसेट्स के ऊपर और इंटेंजिबल एसेट्स के ऊपर in a systematic manner we charge depreciation or amortization depending on whether the asset is tangible or it is intangible. Sometimes it can happen that because of some reason, and the reason can be anything, the reason can be damage in the plant and machinery, the reason can be because of change in the technology, the reason can be because outdated of the product that you are making. The value of that equipment may come down substantially. And let's take for example, आपकी बुक्स में एक एसेट है और वो जो एसेट है आपकी बुक्स में उसकी कैरिंग जो अमाउंट है वो 10 करोड़ है. कितनी है? 10 करोड़. यानी कि आप इस एसेट्स को आपकी बुक्स में आज की तारीख में 10 करोड़ में दिखा रहे हैं. लेकिन अगर आज आप इस एसेट को सेल करने जाओ तो आपको 8 करोड़ रुपया ही मिलेगा. कितना मिलेगा? 8 करोड़. ठीक है. अगर आप आज इस एसेट को सेल करने जाओ तो यू विल गेट ओनली 8 करोड़. दैट मीन्स व्हाट इज द रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू ऑफ दिस एसेट? इट इज 8 करोड़. नाउ अगर आप इस एसेट को यूज करते हो तो उस जो ओवर द लाइफ ऑफ द एसेट यू आर गोइंग टू गेट वैल्यू इन यूज. यानी कि आप इस एसेट को उसकी लाइफ पे यूज़ करोगे तो वो प्रोडक्ट को सेल करके जो आपको कैश मिलेगा उसकी जो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू है वो है 9 करोड़. समझ रहे हैं क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं? सो वन इज़ रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू, सेकेंड इज वैल्यू इन यूज़. सो व्हाट इज़ रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू? रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू की आज जो एसेट है आप इसको ऐसा ही कि ऐसा अगर सेल करते हो तो जो आपको पैसा मिलेगा और उसमें से जो सेल करने पर जो खर्चा जाएगा उसको माइनस करोगे तो आपके हाथ में कितना आएगा? कितना आएगा? 8 करोड़. इसका वैल्यू इन यूज़ यानी कि आप उसको डिस्पोज नहीं करते हो, आप इस मशीन को यूज़ करते हो ओवर इस लाइफ एंड उसकी सेल प्रोडक्ट जो बनाओगे उसको सेल करके जो पैसा आपके हाथ में आएगा उसकी वैल्यू कितनी है? प्रेजेंट वैल्यू कितनी है? 9 करोड़. क्या लगता है आपको ये एसेट का इम्पेयरमेंट हुआ है कि नहीं हुआ है? हुआ है. यस ऑफ कोर्स हुआ है. क्यों? क्योंकि व्हाट इज इम्पेयरमेंट? इम्पेयरमेंट इज व्हेन the book value of an asset or carrying amount of an asset is lower than higher of value in use or realizable value. So carrying amount कितना है? carrying amount कितना है assets का? 10 करोड़. realizable value कितना है? 8 करोड़. value in use कितना है? so value in use और अच्छा ओके. सो तो इम्पेयरमेंट कितना हुआ? 1 करोड़ हुआ. राइट. बिकॉज वाई? बिकॉज व्हाट इज इम्पेयरमेंट? इम्पेयरमेंट इज व्हेन द कैरिंग अमाउंट इज हायर देन हायर ऑफ द वैल्यू इन यूज और रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू. सो वैल्यू इन यूज इज 9 करोड़, realizable value is 8 crore, higher of these two is 9 crore, carrying amount is 10 crore. So carrying amount is higher by 1 crore, then higher of the realizable value and the value in use, and the difference is 1 crore, and this difference is referred as impairment. And that means what? That means this impairment loss has to be taken to your P&L, and your P&L has to record this as a impairment loss. समझ के लीजिए क्यों? why impairment loss? why IndAS 36? IndAS 36 because अगर आपकी कंपनी की ये सिचुएशन है, दैट मीन्स आपकी कंपनी की एसेट कैरिंग अमाउंट 10 करोड़ है, वैल्यू इन यूज़ 9 करोड़ है, रियलाइजेबल वैल्यू 8 करोड़ है, और आप इस एसेट को आपकी बुक्स में 10 करोड़ पर दिखा रहे हैं, यानी कि जो कैरिंग अमाउंट है उस पर दिखा रहे हैं, आर यू गिविंग द राइट पोजीशन ऑफ द एसेट्स ऑफ द कंपनी और यू आर गिविंग रॉन्ग पोजीशन ऑफ द एसेट्स ऑफ द कंपनी? एंड द आंसर इज यू आर गिविंग wrong position of the company, and that is the reason you have IndAS 36, which is about the impairment loss, and this is how it needs to be accounted for. A question that can come to your mind, it is possible कि आपने एक साल में impairment हुआ और आपने उस impairment को रिकॉर्ड कर लिया बुक्स में so as to be IndAS compliant. What for some reason next year the realizable value increases of this plant and equipment, or the value in use increases of this plant and equipment, which is higher than the amount of impairment loss that you recorded in the last year. So the question is, can you write back the impairment loss that you have accounted for in the previous year? And the answer is yes. So subsequently, if there is an increase in the realizable value or there is an increase in the value in use, you can write back the impairment loss. Only thing is, you can only write back what you have recorded and not more than that. Yes, ma'am.
Should impairment be done every year for every asset?
Very good. So let somebody answer. Her question is, and very right, very good question. Should impairment loss be done?
Calculated for every asset for every year.
सर वो ग्रुप में होता है, पूरे एसेट इंडिविजुअली नहीं
Regular interval.
Okay. So the answer is, as per IndAS 36, as an organization, you are supposed to test every asset of yours which is independently generating cash. So any asset which is generating cash independently, you have to test that asset on the balance sheet date every time for impairment. So if you have a reason to believe that there is an impairment which has occurred in respect of this asset, you have to do the testing of the impairment and find out realizable value, find out the value in use, carrying amount is available with you in any case, and based on the numbers that you calculate, you have to record. So it has to be done on every balance sheet date. The only thing is, number one, very rightly said, there can be an asset which is independently generating cash, or there can be group of assets. Independently they are not generating cash, but as a group they are generating cash. So in that case, you will need to do the impairment testing of the group as a whole. Cash generating unit is known as CGU, cash generating unit. So if the group of assets which are capable of generating cash, then you do the impairment testing for those assets, but it has to be done on the balance sheet date every year. So that's your IndAS 36 about impairment. Then you have IndAS 37, which is about provisions and contingencies. It talks about as to when should a transaction be recorded as a provision or when should it be recorded as a contingency. So that is what it talks about, and so that is your IndAS 37 on provisions and contingencies. IndAS 38 is about intangible assets. So remember friends, बहुत सारे लोगों को लगता है कि पूरी दुनिया में जितनी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनीज हैं, दोज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनीज run on the strength of tangible assets, which of course is true, but more than that what you have is that all the companies all over the globe, they not only use tangible assets for their operations, but they also use intangible assets for their operations. Interestingly, many companies, most companies, they are using intangible assets, but those intangible assets are even not reflecting on the balance sheets of those companies. And why is that so? That is because companies like Coke, now Coke is a huge brand name, but remember, Coke has become a huge brand name not because Coke as a company spent a lot of money on building this brand name. Coke has become brand name because of the quality, service and everything and a long life of the company. So Coke has got a huge brand value, but in the balance sheet of Coke, you will not find even a single dollar. And that is the significance of intangible assets. So this IndAS 38 on intangible assets talks about as to how to do the accounting of intangible assets. So obviously remember, self-generated, self-created intangible assets can be of two types. Number one, intangible assets on which you have not spent any money. So Coke becoming a big brand name, Coke has not spent any money. So Coke as a brand name will not reflect in the balance sheet of Coke. But Tata Motors or Bajaj Auto or Maruti, they may spend a lot of money on R&D in developing new products, new design, right? So the cost that they would incur in developing those designs or patents, now those are intangible assets, and those intangible assets will reflect in the balance sheet of Tata Motors, they will reflect in the balance sheet of Maruti. Are you with me, everybody? So in IndAS 38, which is on intangibles, it talks about as to how the accounting has to be done of intangible assets. Then you have IFRS, then you have IndAS 40, which is on investment property. So what is the meaning of investment property? Meaning of investment property is that a company owns a lot of assets, and those assets are held by the company as property, and they may be rented out, earned rental income. So how to do the accounting of investment property, that is what is covered as part of your IndAS 40, which is on investment property. IndAS 41 is about agriculture, and when it says agriculture, not only it will include the agriculture produce or agriculture lands, it will also include animal as part of the IndAS. So that's your agriculture. IndAS 101 is first time adoption. So I think we discussed in the morning कि अगर आप first time adoption कर रहे हो, one of the requirement is that you will need 3 balance sheet and you will need 2 profit and loss statement. Insurance 104, IFRS 104 or IndAS 104 is about the insurance contract. IndAS 109 is about the financial instruments, and then IndAS 113, which is on fair value measurement. Now IndAS 113, which is on fair value measurement, I think is something that all of us must be totally aware, right? So how would you define what is fair value, all of you? What is fair value and how to calculate fair value, how to determine fair value of an asset? Market price of a share. Okay, very good. What is fair value? What is fair value? And this is what we should know, every one of you. I think ये सब मैंने discuss किया है, इसलिए मैं सबको skip कर रहा हूँ. Okay. So what is fair value? Unrelated party. Okay, transaction between unrelated party. Very good, very good. What else? What is fair market value? So one is fair value and another is fair market value. What is fair market value? Okay, let me share it with you, friends. It's very simple. What is fair value? It's very simple. What it says, fair. Fair का मतलब हम सबको मालूम है. Fair का मतलब क्या है कि it should not be unjustifying to anyone, to either of the party. That is fair value. So what is fair value? Fair value is the value which is agreed between two willing buyer and seller at an arm's length transaction, where other than exchange of the asset and the cash, there is no other consideration. Both the buyer and the seller are equally knowledgeable, and neither of them are under any kind of pressure or under any kind of coercion. So that is your fair value. Example, मैम आपका नाम क्या है? जूही. और आपका नाम क्या है? ज्योति. सॉरी, ज्योति. रक्षिता. ओके. सो ज्योति के पास में एक कार है और ज्योति को वो कार सेकेंड हैंड कार सेल करनी है. तो शी टॉक्स टू रक्षिता बिकॉज दे आर नॉन टू ईच अदर, एंड ज्योति सेज टू रक्षिता कि मेरी एक कार है, मुझे डिस्पोज अप करनी है सेकेंड हैंड, वुड यू बी इंटरेस्टेड टू बाय दिस कार? Rakshita says, yeah, thank you, Jyoti. As a matter of fact, I was looking for a second hand car. So when can I come and see your car? So Jyoti says, okay, come tomorrow. So Rakshita goes to her place and also takes a mechanic with her. She asked the mechanic to see the car. Mechanic ने वो गाड़ी देखी और आके उन्होंने रक्षिता को बोला कि ये गाड़ी अगर आप 2 लाख रुपए में लेंगे तो ये ठीक है, 2 लाख रुपए तक आप इसका पे कर सकते हैं, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. तो मैकेनिक ने रक्षिता को बोला और मैकेनिक चला गया. रक्षिता ने ज्योति से कहा, ज्योति मैं आपकी गाड़ी खरीदने को तैयार हूँ, क्योंकि मेरा मैकेनिक बोलता है आपकी गाड़ी की सिचुएशन अच्छी है तो मैं इसको खरीदने के लिए तैयार हूँ, लेकिन मैं आपको 2 लाख रुपए नहीं दे सकती, मैं आपको 1,80,000 रुपये दूंगी. ज्योति को भी आइडिया है अपनी गाड़ी का कि अपनी गाड़ी की क्या प्राइस हो सकती है, कितना अपने को मैक्सिमम मिल सकता है. तो ज्योति बोलती है नहीं रक्षिता, 1,80,000 तो नहीं, लेकिन अगर आप 1,90,000 देने को तैयार हो तो मैं आपको इसको 1,90,000 में आपको बेचने को तैयार हूँ. तो रक्षिता बोलती है ठीक है, इट्स ओके विद मी. So Rakshita pays 1,90,000 to Jyoti. Jyoti gives delivery of the car to her. So this price of 1,90,000, which is agreed between Akshita and Jyoti, is a fair value. क्यों? ज्योति के ऊपर कोई प्रेशर है? नहीं है. रक्षिता के ऊपर कोई प्रेशर है? नहीं है. ज्योति को गाड़ी के बारे में मालूम है? मालूम है. रक्षिता को गाड़ी के बारे में मालूम है? मालूम है. कोई और इनके बीच में कोई कंसिडरेशन है क्या? उसके अलावा कोई और दूसरा कंसिडरेशन नहीं है. सो दिस इज अ फेयर वैल्यू. सो अ वैल्यू विच इज़ फेयर टू बोथ दी पार्टीज़, यानी कि दोनों पार्टीज़ को कोई प्रेशर नहीं है, कोई कोर्शन नहीं है, एंड दोनों एट आर्म्स लेंथ वो ट्रांजैक्शन कर रहे हैं. देन यू हैव समथिंग विच इज नॉन एज फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू. सो व्हाट इज फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू? Market price, yes, of course, market price. What is market value? Fair market value. And fair market value is very simple. Fair value is a value which is determined between two parties, and when this value is determined by a market, it becomes a fair market value. So when you bring the market into the picture, it becomes fair market value. Meaning what? Meaning Jyoti has to sell her car, and instead of talking to Rakshita, or instead of thinking of talking to Rakshita, what she does, she knows that there is a portal called OLX, there is a portal called Spinny, there is a portal called Car Dekho. So what she does, she puts all the details of her car and photograph of that car on the portal of Spinny, OLX and Car Dekho. Someone from the Spinny calls her that ma'am, we have seen your car. हमने आपको गाड़ी का डिटेल्स सबके साथ में सर्कुलेट किया, और सर्कुलेट करने के बाद में हमारे 10,000 बायर हैं और उन 10,000 ने उस कार के लिए बिड किया, और वो जो बिड करके प्राइस इमर्ज हो रही है, दैट इज़ 2,30,000. इज दिस प्राइस एग्रीएबल टू यू? एंड रक्षिता ज्योति सेज यस, दिस प्राइस इज एग्रीएबल टू मी. सो दिस प्राइस ऑफ 2,25,000 इज नाउ नोन एज fair market value. So that is the difference between the fair value and the fair market value. IndAS 113, which is on fair value measurement, it gives you an idea as to how fair value is to be determined under different circumstances. And remember, there are about 19 accounting standards out of 39 where there is a need for fair value measurement to happen. And so this IndAS 113, which is on fair value measurement, please remember, number one, it tells you three approaches of valuation. And what those 3 approaches of valuation are? Those 3 approaches of valuation are: number 1 approach is the income approach, number 2 and number 3 asset approach. And you do know, it's not a rocket science, it's very simple. Why income approach is known as income approach? Income approach is known as income approach because under the income approach, you do the valuation based on the information that relates to income of the business, and that is why it is known as income. यानी कि जब आप किसी कंपनी का, किसी एसेट का वैल्यूएशन उसकी इनकम के बेसिस पर कर रहे हैं, it is known as income approach. When you are doing the valuation of a company based on the market information, it is known as market approach. And when you are doing the valuation of a company based on the assets of the company, it is known as asset approach or cost approach. Please remember, IndAS 113 does not tell you as to which method or which approach should you adopt under different situations, because that is what you have to decide, or that is what the valuation professional whose help you will take, he will tell you as to under this situation, this is the approach that need to be applied, or this is the method that needs to be applied. It does not talk in terms of any, it does not prescribe any approach or any method. So this is about in IndAS 113. So I think quickly let me share with you the remaining ones also. And so this is what we discussed. And then relating to the consolidation, there is IndAS 27, which is separate financial statements, IndAS 28, which is about investment in associates and joint ventures, IndAS 103, which is about business combinations, IndAS 110, which is about consolidated financial statements, IndAS 113, which is about joint ventures, and IndAS 112, which is about disclosure of interest in other entities. So all put together, there are 39 different accounting standards. I know 39 accounting standards to cover in a span of 3 hours is just to next to impossible to do it, but we thought why not to give you a broad perspective about all these accounting standards, all these indices, right? So with this I come to the close of my session. In case if any one of you has any question, you can please ask me and I would be very happy to answer them.
सर IndAS 115 और IndAS 18 में क्या फर्क है?
Okay, so IndAS 115 and IndAS 18, which is on revenue recognition. So I think the difference is in terms of the scope. So the under IndAS 115, the scope has been expanded much bigger. So it is the scope that has expanded in case of IndAS 115. Yeah. Okay. So all right, I am sure all of you must be hungry. Are you hungry? Are you hungry? आपकी आवाज़ नहीं आ रही, उससे मालूम पड़ता है कि आप सब लोग hungry हो. So are you hungry? Okay, thank you so much and wish you all the very best. And in case if any one of you would like to have a copy of this PPT, you can send me a WhatsApp message and I would certainly be very happy to share it with you, right? Thank you so much. और ये जो 2 किताबें मैंने जो 2